The Munich conference is taking place today in Germany, today the 14th of February 2025. And funny enough, for the first time in 3 years, they allowed the Russian representatives to attend. After the main conference is done, another meeting is scheduled aside just for the United States and the Russian representative alone to have talks on further settlement of the Ukrainian conflict. Another very important meeting is taking place next week in Saudi Arabia between the United States, Russia, and Ukraine. They will meet to discuss further settlement of the conflict in Saudi Arabia next week. Donald Trump said the contact between the United States, Russia, and Ukraine in Saudi Arabia will determine whether a settlement is achievable to solve this Ukrainian conflict. Now, don't forget, that was political talk. The deal has been done already. But they have to keep up that momentum of using all these political jargons to confuse people. But anyway, that was what Donald Trump said. Now, let's go back to the Munich conference that is taking place today. At the Munich conference, once again, the United States made it very clear that Ukraine will not return to its border integrity of 2014. It is not going to happen. It is not a concession to Vladimir Putin, but it is an acceptance of realism. You have to accept the reality. That is not going to happen. So this is what the United States is saying. And they made it very clear. That is not concession to Russia, but it is the reality. Because if you want a realistic solution to the problem, going back to the 2014 border level is not going to happen. So forget about it. Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting. The NATO Secretary General, Mark Rutte, you all know the guy. He said, listen to the word I'm about to say, okay? Mark Rutte said, NATO never promised Ukraine membership. Did you hear what I said? Mark Rutte, the NATO Secretary General, said NATO never promised Ukraine membership. This had been their anthem, their daily anthem for the last 3 years, that Ukraine will join NATO. But here we are. They are denying it, that they never promised Ukraine such. So what is the reason why Ukraine have been fighting and getting killed for the last 3 years? And some of you sit your fat behind there. You're accusing me. You're having a go at me. But you see, reality is kicking in. Here we are. NATO is now denying that they never promised Ukraine membership. Let me tell you what this is all about. Yeah, NATO had bowed to the pressure from Russia. And this is another good news to Russia and all the supporters of Russia all around the world. NATO had folded. Finally, they've come to their senses. EU said they will support Ukraine if Ukraine doesn't agree with the terms of agreement reached by United States and Russia. Again, this is just political talk. There is nothing they can do about it. You know that as much as I do. Another thing that came up, I found out today, is that the war party in the West, they have this movement called the War Party, sponsored by the government. I don't know how they function. But anyway, they have launched a massive campaign against Donald Trump's intention to start negotiations and to end this war in Ukraine. And as well as regarding the call between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. If you didn't understand that, let me put it in a very simple language. The West have launched a massive campaign against Donald Trump. They want to stop Donald Trump from ending this war. They want to stop Donald Trump from starting negotiations. They are angry because Donald Trump made a phone call to Vladimir Putin to start the process of negotiations. If you are watching this video right now, with what I have just said? Does anything make sense from what I've just said? So we still have a set of people that want this war to continue. They don't want this war to end. They are making billions, they are making money from the death of innocent people. Maybe we should start sending their families to the front line to go and fight. Maybe, just maybe, then they will come to their senses. Don't you think? But meanwhile, why all of this is happening? Why all of this argument? Why all of these people are crying, complaining, yapping, trying to start some form of movement here and there? Donald Trump is already in a full swing negotiation with Russia without Europe and without Ukraine, which is something that scares the European Union badly. Now, don't forget, all the European Union wants is a security guarantee from the United States, something Donald Trump had so far refused. Most of the EU, let me tell you the reason why the EU are dying for security guarantee. Let me tell you the reason why. Because it is very important for their own safety, but I doubt if they will get it. I'll tell you the reason why the EU is dying for a security guarantee. Don't forget, most of the EU countries have sent weapons into Ukraine. And some of those weapons, even most of those weapons, were used to attack Russian Federation. Russian citizens, in some of the cases, were killed as a result of the use of those weapons. Europe knows Russia will never forget. They know Russia will never forgive. And that is the reason why they are looking for some form of protection in case Russia decides to go for them at some point, which most likely, if you know how Russia behaves, if you know the history of Russia, you know most likely Russia will do something like that. It might not be in the next 5 years, it might not be in the next 10 years, but Russia like to take their time. Europe knows this. And they know without a form of security guarantee, they are done. This is why they are doing everything just to get some form of cover, insurance from the United States. This is not all about Ukraine. Forget, you see all this they are doing about Ukraine. No, it's not about Ukraine. It's about them. It's about their own survival. Let me finish up this update without wasting your data too much. Finally, Zelensky said NATO will have to send their soldiers to Ukraine to fight. He said it is impossible to feel safe from Russia without a security guarantee. Do you know what Zelensky meant by security guarantee? He said, what I meant by, this is word for what Zelensky said, yeah? He said, what I meant by security guarantee is strong weapons and nuclear weapons. If Ukraine does not join NATO, then Ukraine will build NATO in Ukraine. In other words, if Ukraine doesn't join NATO, which is pretty much likely not going to happen, Ukraine will build nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Zelensky said they have everything they need to build nuclear weapons. He is requesting for 100,000 NATO peacekeepers in Ukraine. Okay, people complain about this in my life. Maybe I need to stop it. But what the hell? Zelensky is requesting for 100,000 NATO peacekeepers in Ukraine. If you don't let me join NATO, I will start building nuclear weapons. Like somebody baking cake. Like it's that simple, just to bake cake, right? Those are the words of Zelensky today, the 14th of Feb 2025. The fire is on the mountain. Everybody is trying to get some form of protection. This is not about the war in Ukraine anymore. The war in Ukraine is dead and gone. We know they're still fighting, obviously they have to keep going. But everybody is now trying to look for some form of protection for the future. The comment section is officially open.